Marriage counselors of Reddit. What's the stupidest reason a couple has made an appointment? Couldn't decide on which chicken to buy for their chicken farm. That's hilarious. But hey, if that's a big decision in their lives, I'm glad they had a facilitated conversation about it. I work with a lot of kids, and I see far more stupid reasons that couples have not scheduled an appointment. Parents spill their guts while explaining what's wrong with their children. And 90% of the time it's the parent's marriage causing issues with the child family. This is totally not a catch-all statement because many children have true behavioral emotional challenges separate from their parents' marriage. But at the same time, if you feel like your child is struggling and you have tried everything, maybe try marriage counseling. Oh, this is so true. LCSW here. Worked with kiddos and families for a good chunk of my career. And 95% of the time, if the kid is having issues, there's a parenting issue or a marriage partner problem. Not me, but my buddy's wife demanded counseling after he refused to fix his habit of leaving the seat up. Apparently the straw that broke the camel's back was he didn't realize his poo came back up and she fell into the toilet on his old waterlogged shit. This doesn't make sense though. Does he sh-tee with the seat up? The most important piece of the toilet is the lid. And the lid should be put down before flushing to help contain the fecal cocktail from splattering the bathroom. But if she wants the lid down, instinctively she should be accustomed to lifting the lid up and not simply sitting down. My ex made an app for us when he got his side girl pregnant. I was 26 and in grad school. Lonely, stressed, and horribly gaslit. And went along. At the time the therapist would say if he hasn't changed by now he's not going to. Usually I'm trying to keep people together but I'm not sure I can now and I would get mad. Now I look back and things come on girl. Run. I needed to hear this. It seems impossible to leave. But equally impossible to stay. I'm slowly destroying myself. A relative of mine went to counseling because his wife was having affairs their entire marriage. Their counselor told him to get a divorce. He said straight up that every relationship is not meant to be saved. He is now happily divorced and has an amazing new fiance 7 years later, so it ended up being somewhat okay. If I was with a guy who got another girl pregnant while we were together, I would straight up eternal sunshine his ass. No hesitation. They got into a domestic because he wouldn't try her jam. I know this sounds dumb, but jam can take forever to make. If your significant other worked 4 hours to make something, you better have a really good reason for not trying it. Eater. After rereading this I realized OP might be referring to a domestic as domestic violence. That is never okay. Especially over preservatives. When my fiance asks me to try his food I tell him I don't want to, but I try it anyway. But when I ask him to try my food he doesn't want to and won't do it, so I started declining trying his food. If he won't try mine I won't try his. Funny thing is, if I tell him I didn't like it, a couple days later he would make the exact same food and ask me to try it again. He get mad when I tell him I'm not gonna try it cause I already tried it and I didn't like it. I had a pimp and one of his ex workers come to see me because they were having jealousy issues. They were legally married and he was unhappy with how she couldn't leave work at work. Best couple ever. I kind of understand this one. My ex was a sex worker, but she had a history of sexual abuse when she was young. And because of the nature of the work, she had a hard time being vulnerable and open with me. Makes it hard to be intimate with someone who is closed off and guarded during sex. I remember thinking I wish she didn't treat me like another client during sex. Rest of the relationship was fine. We were just too young to realize we both had unresolved issues and eventually broke up. I had this couple in my office that was struggling with the fact that their dog would constantly piss in the bed. The husband was ready to boot the dog out, but the wife absolutely would not let that happen. They got the dog from a pretty reputable breeder, so the option of returning the dog was also there if they needed it. The husband doubted that, though. He said the breeder was some sort of creep that tries to hit on women when they go to buy dogs from him. The wife denied this, but the husband continued. The breeder tried to set up a date with the wife when she got the dog. He asked her if she wanted to go to this well-known Mexican restaurant in the town. The owner of the restaurant was kind of a prick, though. He would always skimp out on the chips and salsa, and would charge you if you asked for another basket. He also berated the buses and waitresses in front of customers. FCK that guy. He insists Jar Jar is a Sith Lord and she just doesn't care. I have never wanted a story to be true as much as I want to believe this. Not a counselor, but my friend is one. And a couple came to her, unofficially, because the wife wouldn't tell her hubby when her mum was coming over because she knew he'd be sick or out that day. Imagine having money to spare on marriage counseling you don't even need. Vaccinate their child. Dad say go. Mum says no. At dad. One parent's consent is all that's required. I'm a clinical therapist and had a client bring in their spouse for a session. They both had sporadically treated bipolar disorder. I can only assume what a wild ride their kids are on. Poor kids. I remember having this one couple, mid-30s, who just couldn't see any possible chance for reconciliation. She was mad at him because his bowel movement smelled bad, and they only had one bathroom. The kicker is that he always would spray air freshener. Yet she said it wasn't enough. She felt like if she needed to use the restroom, she shouldn't ever have to smell him, albeit mixed with air freshener smell. So she had finally had enough, and she wanted out. He begged and pleaded with her not to. He even tried changing his diet. Nothing. They came to me for help. And I'll never in my life forget that first meeting. He sat down. With weathered, puffy eyes, he had been crying quite a bit. Looked me straight in my eyes. And said, "Doc, you should have used a serious tag." Double quote. My uncle and his wife. Reasoning. She lost a frying pan. I mean, I get that it's a stupid argument. But how the FCK do you lose a frying pan? Cupboard, hob, next to sink, into sink to soak, next to sink because other things need washing. Angry wife puts all the washing in the garden out of spite because husband never does the F-king washing up and the kitchen is a F-king mess. Raccoon steals frying pan. Not a counselor, but sat in a bathroom for hours waiting for a guy and his GF to stop violently fighting about me being there behind her back apparently. Don't believe he says folks. I know this has a lot of upvotes but I'm struggling to understand the comment. I just woke up from a nap so maybe my reading hasn't kicked in yet. Can someone please explain it to me in small and numerous words? It's always the dishes. I don't see couples anymore because I cannot have one more conversation with adult human beings about the various philosophies of dishwashing. As a younger person, I want to say that the game is rigged. We've learned from our parents. Don't rush into marriage. Test out sexual compatibility. Check and check. But do you know how long it takes to establish dishwashing compatibility? I had a woman come in for couples counseling. Over the phone she reported that her boyfriend, with the same last name very confusing, was distant and was refusing to listening. When the session started it was just her that showed up. She went on and on about how absent he was and how he refused to see the progress she had been making in her life. It turns out the boyfriend was an ex who had a restraining order against her and lived halfway across the country from her. She was delusional and was receiving treatment for her mental health issues. She just could not get her thinking away from him and legally change her last name to his because it would mean they would be together. She figured couples counseling was the way to work out their relationship issues. Edit. Not sure this is the stupidest, but it is definitely the most bizarre reason I have had someone make an appointment. There was a case in marriage laws in India where the husband complained to his wife that the food didn't have enough salt. The wife asked him to get the salt himself. The husband said, "If I have to do everything, why are you here? Go somewhere else and die." The next day his wife killed herself. The family of his wife came to complain but he asked them to go somewhere else and die. They sued him for abatement of suicide. But his lawyer pleaded that he asked the in-laws to die as well. But they didn't, the wife did, but it cannot be abatement. Court declared him not guilty and set a precedent that abuses and words said in passion are not abatement. I need advice from a marriage counselor. My husband keeps threatening to have me arrested for perjury and calling the cops if I question him or say he's lying. Your husband absolutely cannot have you arrested for perjury. You need to take an oath in court to tell the truth and then deliberately lie to commit perjury. Please seek out domestic violence resources in your city, state, county. You are being abused. Please be safe. I'm a counselor with teenagers and kids. A school staff member dragged these two teens into my office one day. A boy and a girl. Both were clearly upset but definitely didn't want to talk about it with me. You could have cut the tension with a knife as they sat frozen in their chairs staring at the floor. I saw them and thought, OFCK. She's pregnant. I'm trying not to panic at how to handle the situation as I finally get them talking, and it turns out they were just fighting because he sent a text to some girl. A text. At least she wasn't pregnant. From the other side, I ran into an ex-girlfriend after being broken up for a long time. We decided to go to couples counseling as friends to clarify some stuff from the past. We went to the session, talked about some heavy stuff, but then ended up being very supportive to each other and laughed and stuck up for each other in a weird way. At the end, the counselor guy was just staring at us sort of dumbfounded and said something along the lines of, "Oh, you two clearly need to get back together." I just remembered his face. He was looking at us like we were idiots. I think the idea of post-breakup couples counseling as friends might have been a new thing as well. Went to a counselor BC. My mother blew up over the bridal shower. There were 5 bridesmaids. Her sister, maid of honor, her cousin, my 2 sisters, and her sister-in-law. Maid of honor lived in different states and no one was planning anything for the shower. Sister-in-law stepped up and did it all, and my mother lost her shit when they asked my sisters to help split the cost but had no say in shower. Became the reason my now ex-wife hated my mom and family pretty much. Went to counseling and then became, if we have kids, your family will have nothing to do with them. My ex eventually got knocked up by some random and that was the final straw. So many red flags that I just didn't realize. Nothing is really stupid in making the decision to come in for a couples session. But the most startling session I've had was when the couple had barely sat down and one of them informed the other that the relationship was over. Turned to me and said, "Thank you for supporting, partner, through this," and left the office. That is a complete power move. No turning back. No bargaining. A marriage already going down the drain is never worth saving. Divorce. Lots of fish in the sea. Absolutely everyone is dispensable and replaceable. Even your spouse. The only thing that's important, it's your kids if you have any. The best gift you can offer them is to not having parents that constantly fight. You don't have to have a marriage going down the drain to benefit from counseling. There are many people who strengthen their relationship because of counseling. This is terrible advice. I'm not a counselor, but your comment is concerning, so I just wanted to mention a couple of things. 1. Of course he can't have you arrested for perjury. Perjury is lying under oath. In a court of law, there is absolutely no crime in questioning someone or telling them you believe they're lying. 2. Looking at your past post. If the two of you still have not seen a counselor, then he did lie. If he's constantly trying to convince you that things didn't happen the way you know they did, then that is called gaslighting. The term gets overused on Reddit a lot, but in your case it does sound like that is exactly what he's doing, and if so, that is a form of abuse. Having said that, please just remember, if he will not go with you to see a counselor, you can still make an appointment and go by yourself. Relationships are not supposed to hurt. We really need a context here though. I had a BF who gaslighted and psychologically tortured me for years. I remember how he never appreciated anything I did and I was never enough. One day I made a special bread for him which took me a whole day to make. He never tasted it. He said, "I'm sure it's shit." That was the last straw. Somehow I found the strength to leave him after that. But you can also look at our last moment and say she left him BC he didn't taste her bread. Double quote. My mom and stepdad and I all tried to do family counseling. I was 27 at the time, and the whole session just consisted of my mom telling the therapist what a loser I was, hadn't finished college yet but overall didn't feel like I was a loser and didn't know she felt that way. God bless that therapist though. Because he went through all the reasons why I wasn't a complete loser, had a job, no arrests, no kids, not living with parents. It really opened my eyes to how mean my mom can be and how she just expects everyone to agree with her. Otherwise they're the stupid ones. She never went back to any more family sessions, probably because the therapist dared defy her, but me and my stepdad kept seeing the therapist separately. It honestly helped a lot. I really miss that guy. As a teacher, kindy, primary, 18 years, almost always when we have a problem child, we meet the parents and discover the source of the problem. One little boy, in kindy, came to school and went about telling the female teachers, "You don't love me, you just FCK me." Double quote. His parents got divorced not long after and I saw this sad little boy alone with his mum for the next few years. Dad was gone. I mean, considering biology and environment are the two main factors in developing how people act, I would imagine a lot of it's still parenting in some form. That being said, there are a lot of situational factors many parents can't control. So it's all pretty dependent.